All right. I don't know who all we lost. All right. I don't know if anyone's still watching. Doesn't look like it. All right. Let's see. Let me go ahead and tweet about it. Hey, I'm back. Get your news on with Ron. Huh? There we go. All right. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Sorry. Let me see if anyone's here. Oh, are you guys still here? It looks like one person's here. Hey, all right, more than one. Hey, Dana, how are you? It was not a GPie. It was actually me. I went to switch on the browser, and I accidentally bumped something on the OBS that took me out. We can actually not blame the internet. We cannot blame the tech gods. We can blame me, myself, and I. So I apologize. I don't know how many people are still here. Hopefully we get everybody back. But, yeah, sorry about that. Oh, you shut off the live text. Did I? I don't think I did that. All that municipal internet talk. Crawley shut me down. All right, well, let's go see what's going on there. Marcia, you didn't miss much. We were talking about what's going on with Ocasio-Cortez, and I accidentally ended the stream. So this is try number 2, actually. But all right, so let's get back. Let's find. All right. Let's start it again. Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron. Welcome back. Good to be here. So, for anyone not in the know, Joe Crawley is still going to be on the ballot. As of right now, he's still going to be on the ballot in November. Now, this is after he told Ocasio-Cortez, he supported her, that the Democratic Party needs unity, and that she was born to run. He played the Bruce Springsteen song, Born to Run, for Ocasio-Cortez. Interestingly enough, Bruce Springsteen, I bet you anything, would probably have voted for Ocasio-Cortez over Joe Crawley. So that's big of him. It seemed like he was being very humble and very gracious in his defeat. Turns out, that's not the case. Turns out, he's going to be on the ballot anyway due to these complications. And he's essentially, in a very sneaky way, mounting a third-party run. That's essentially what he's doing. And he's not being transparent about it. He's being shady about it. And he's a liar. It looks like right now he's lying. And it's very interesting that the party that claims to be for women and minorities and the working class is trying really, really hard to let an establishment old white guy screw over a 28-year-old Latina woman. A 28-year-old Latina woman who was a bartender a year ago, who worked her ass off to win that election fair and square. That's what they're trying really, really hard to do right now. Because the first priority of the Democratic Party is to screw over progressives and make sure progressive change doesn't happen, while simultaneously pleasing their donors in their gravy train. A little further down the road on their priority list is maybe beating a Republican or two. That's not the first priority. That's down the road. Because she won fair and square. She is inciting so much excitement, and they're trying to screw her over. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to screw her over. So let's go and see what's really going on. All right. Ocasio-Cortez highlights how third-party quirks can muddle elections. Right away, the headline makes it seem like she's complaining. They make it seem like this is about her Whereas all she did was she called out Joe Crowley's hypocrisy. That's what she did. Ocasio-Cortez calls out opponents' hypocrisy since he's trying to muddle the election via running a third party. Because that's essentially what he's doing. And, you know, establishment apologists are going to try to tie it up and put a bow on it. But, you know, we know a rat when we smell one. And that's what's going on here. All right, so we all know what Ocasio-Cortez is all about. We all know what she did. She beat him. So here's what's going on. The Working Families Party line was won by Mr. Crowley, who had secured that party's endorsement. Bill Lipton, state director of the Working Families Party, said he immediately reached out to Mr. Crowley's campaign to request that he vacate the line. So here's the deal. All right, hold on. Did I skip something? No, okay. Here's the deal. So during the primary, Mr. Crowley got the Working Families Party endorsement. And then he lost. So the Working Family Parties, they reached out to Mr. Crowley's campaign to basically ask him to let go of the endorsement so that they can give it to Ocasio-Cortez or just, you know, move it elsewhere, whatever. I mean, I'm assuming they're giving it to Ocasio-Cortez, obviously. And they ignored these requests. So the campaign declined. So because of that, he'll be on the ballot in November. And Mr. Lipton said, "You'd think that given the moment we're in, that Democratic leaders would want to help progressive forces unite." So here's the only response they gave to the Working Families. Joe Crowley is a Democrat. He's made it clear he's not running for Congress and supports the Democratic nominee. They wouldn't even say her name, by the way. So here's why this is complicated. In Mr. Crowley's case, vacating the line is not that simple. The Working Families Party must go through a convoluted legal maneuver, essentially nominating the unwanting primary winner for another electoral position on the ballot, often one that he or she has little chance of winning, like a county clerkship. Okay, so the party is stuck if it's a write-in. And in the unlikely event that they don't accept or decline, it's just all null and void. It's all null and void, and the party can't back anyone. So basically, they're just in a limbo. They're just in a stalemate, and because of that, this guy's going to be on the ballot. That's essentially what's going on, and he's not addressing it. He's giving this lip service. He gave Ocasio-Cortez lip service on Twitter saying, "Look, I made it clear I'm not running. I made it clear I'm supporting." Okay, then why don't you communicate with this Families Party? Because you know they have a complicated process. So why don't you do what you're supposed to do to make sure you're off the ballot and to make sure you're endorsing the person who beat you fair and square? Because you're not honest. That's the answer to that. Because you're not honest. So that's what's going on. Let me go to the chat, see what you guys are saying about it. WTF? Yeah, that's a good response. That is a good response. Nancy Pelosi, we're capitalists, says Dana. Dem Party just keeps moving the goalpost. DNC refuses to condemn radical Christian terrorist attacks like the one in Vegas. Okay. It's not really on the topic we're on, but heaven forbid we put out a young, attractive socialist people will vote for. Yeah, exactly. They don't want that. Zach's pointing out, what else do we need to Dem exit? I asked that same question before I accidentally prematurely ended the stream. What else do we need? I mean, this really is a scam. And it's so interesting. And, you know, it's just so insanely deceptive how they're going. You know, if he would have said, if Joe Crowley would have been like, I'm running as an independent, I would have been like, man, that's really shitty. But, you know, he has the right to do that. Everybody has the right to democracy. But, he lied, which makes it even worse. It makes it even worse that he straight up lied. And he's already stabbing her in the back. And the establishment is already stabbing her in the back. And this solidifies something that we already knew. Winning is not their priority. You have this 28-year-old Latina woman who is exciting so many people, who's motivating a movement behind her, who won another district as a write-in because she's so freaking popular. I mean, if she keeps up this momentum here at the beginning of her career, I don't think it's totally unrealistic to say she could run for president one day. I don't think that's unrealistic, given the start of her political career right here, if she keeps up this momentum. And what does the Democratic establishment do? They try to screw her as soon as they can. And they lie about it. And they're deceptive about it. And they're completely dishonest about it. I mean, if you're going to try to screw over a progressive, at least be honest about it. But no, they can't do that. Because they have nothing to run against her. When you stand for nothing, you can't be transparent about your political agenda. Because your political agenda is donors first, people last. That's your agenda. That's your platform. How many votes does that inspire? I'll tell you, 0. And this is just another example of why it's time to let the Democratic Party die. But tell me how I'm the one screwing over my allies. That it's me. That it's the people that are Dem-exiting. That it's the Green Party. That it's progressives. That it's Tim Canova. That it's whoever else. And not the establishment people that are trying to put their thumb on the people that are really becoming a mobilizing force. That are giving credibility to a party that I think we should let die in the water. Because I think it is beyond repair. Now, there's a lot of great progressives Dem entering. I will cast a vote for those candidates. But I think in the long run, the strategy of Dem entering is the wrong one. Right now, we don't have a choice. Right now, there's not that much of a choice. In many, for instances. Not in every, for instance. And there's a lot of people running Green Party that I'm thrilled about. I hope they win. I hope Kenneth Mejia wins. But right now, there's a lot of situations where you don't have much of a choice. You kind of need to Dem enter right now. I wish the Convergence Conference had gone differently. So that might not be the case, but it is, and that's where we're at. So I understand the complexity of it all. And I don't claim to have the right answer. But man, how many slaps in the face can we take before enough's enough? It's unbelievable. All right. So, I know this show's kind of disjointed right now. So let me try to just kind of find the timeline. I know some of you tweeted when I went when I went off. So, and Edwin, again, thank you for the plug to Ocasio-Cortez. I don't know if she got to watch this, but I kind of doubt it. But I'd imagine she's pretty busy at the moment. All right, so this is from Marcus. I just gave it a Get Your News On with Ron retweet. So let's see what's going on here. Democrats like McCaskill caught between historic stakes and immediate politics on Kavanaugh nomination. What the hell is this? You guys seeing? Oh, this article is not loading for me. Answer a survey. Can I say no? All right. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Okay. All right. Sorry about that, Marcus. But, yeah, that's it. If you can send me something else, please do. I gotta get like an ad block or something like that. Although ad block wouldn't have helped there. That was like some weird survey with the. That's really smart when you're a local outlet. Charge people to read your newspaper. That'll assure a nice long life. All right, let me go over to the Reddit. And feel free to keep tweeting stuff, by the way, you guys. So here's another thing concerning ICE that someone posted on the Reddit. Who's making money from Trump's immigration crackdown in Chicago? See where these ICE operations take place in Illinois and what corporations are profiting. So enforcing President Trump's strict immigration policy has been lucrative for some Chicago contractors. Since the Trump administration began tightening immigration policies, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents have arrested an increasing number of undocumented immigrants and asylum seekers. That makes government contractors even more necessary than before to transport, guard, and detain immigrants, as well as to translate and inspect facilities, among other services. ICE contractors have pulled in billions of dollars over the years. Sludge analyzed all ICE contracts that were ongoing as of July 5th or ended that day. The data, over 6,000 transactions, included contracts with no listed end date. More than 20 contractors have ongoing contracts. So who is contracting with ICE? We can look. New Berlin. So this gives you all of the money that's going in here. And you know what this reminds me of? So this reminds me of the fracking industry a little bit. Because it's, incredibly corrupt and brutal. And something that we're better off without. But the way they do things with controversial practices, right? And that's putting it very gently, by the way. I just tied up and put a bow on the verbiage there. But when it comes to something like fracking or ICE, what they do is they get a lot of these contracting companies that are all, completely shady and doing horrific stuff. And they just make a bunch of them, and they all just kind of launder money all around. So that way, when something goes wrong, you have absolutely no clue who is to blame. That's what they do in the fracking industry. What they'll do in the fracking industry, they'll have all these third-party contractors, truck drivers, and this and that, and there's all these different companies involved. So when a spill happens, when an environmental disaster happens, you don't know who's at fault. And what's the first thing that the companies say, the oil and gas companies? It's not because of the process. It's because of these negligent workers that have since been fired. And then they hang one of the third-party agencies out to dry, probably the one with the least power. They're all corrupt. I'm not giving anyone a pass. But that's what they do. That's how they do things. This is the same thing. Whenever an ICE agent does something brutal, which happens all the time, they're going to point to some kind of contracting company. They're going to say, this isn't our main agency. This isn't our main... This is a bad apple from this third-party agency that we no longer work with. That's what they're going to say. It's set up this way, A, because it makes it easier to funnel more money into it so people don't realize quite the racket that it is, because there's all these different agencies making money. And B, when something does happen, when something terrible does happen, which terrible things happen every day, I should specify, when something terrible happens and we hear about it, it gets reported, they're going to be able to deflect blame very easily. This is a money laundering and PR stunt. ICE does it. The fracking industry does it. This is what shady industries do to survive. I'll go to the chat, see what you guys are saying about this. Kim, thank you very much for the Super Chat contribution. It goes without saying, but we all have to rally for Ocasio. Phone bank, door knock, spread the word. Right on, right on. Exactly, Ron. That's the same reason they use military contractors abroad. So do you guys see what I'm saying, right? Like you see... Like, I don't know, do you guys see what I'm saying? Like they get all these... I think you guys get it. I'm probably over-explaining it now. And it's like, it's not rocket science. But it's like they get all these third-party contractors involved. It's really all the same big umbrella. But this way, A, it's easier to kind of hide the bottom line, the racket that they're just going to try to throw at us. And then it makes it easier that when something does happen and gets reported, they can just deflect blame. They'll be like, oh, it was this guy, it was this guy, it was this guy. No, it was this contractor. It was this. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, now I over-explained it. What are you going to do? All right. All right, so this is a funny article. This is from Trucker Judd. Funny article that says nothing was affected yet. Okay, so that's the disclaimer here. Let me give it a retweet, then we'll go to it and check it out. It's from NPR, Nice Polite Republicans, or National Petroleum Radio. Russian influence campaign sought to exploit Americans' trust in local news. Oh, what did these crazy Russians do now with their memes? Russia's information attack against the United States. Oh, now it's an information attack. First it was collusion, then it was treason, then it was interference. Now it's an information attack. I'm going to attack you with this information. What's the information? It's Jesus arm wrestling Satan. Here's some more information I'm attacking you with. It's Bernie Sanders with rainbow abs. And wait for it, it's in broken English. Ooh, we're ready to take down a $1 billion campaign. How can anyone write these articles with a straight face anymore? I bet they don't. These articles should all have a laugh track. Russia's information attack against the United States. During the 2016 election cycle, sought to take advantage of the greater trust that Americans tend to place in local news. Yeah, you know those Americans, they flock to local news. Local newspapers are thriving. They're not just glorified coupon books at this point. They are thriving. That's where all of it, media homogenization totally didn't touch those local newspapers. No way. What a joke. The information operatives who worked out of the Internet Research Agency in St. Petersburg did not stop at posting as American social media users are spreading false information from purported news sources. We had a big plan. They also created a number of Twitter accounts that posed as sources for Americans' hometown headlines. NPR's reviewed information connected with the investigation and found 48 such accounts. If 48 fake Twitter accounts can't take down nationwide localized media everywhere, I don't know what could. Guys, I'll tell you what, this Onion piece is pretty solid. A not insignificant amount of those had some sort of variation on what appeared to be a homegrown local news site, said Brett Schaefer, a social media analyst for the Alliance for Securing Democracy, which tracks Russian influence operations. There's jobs dedicated to this bullshit now. There's jobs dedicated to this. Another example, the Internet Research Agency created an account that looks like it was the Chicago Daily News. The newspaper shuttered in 1978. So they're so effective and they're so good at their propaganda, and they're so influential, they pick out media outlets that have been gone for over 30 years. That's how thorough and legitimate they are. Clearly, Putin himself was Googling this. You guys realize how ridiculous this is, right? You realize how this is just neo-McCarthyism bullshit and a waste of time. All right, this is... First, the Russian was a years-long effort. The Russians are playing a long game. Look, it's going to start out with memes that only 300 people are going to see. It's going to morph into Rainbow Bernie abs. Senator Susan Collins weighed in. This effort is not over. The Russians are trying to sow the seeds of discontent in our society, take advantage of the polarization that exists. Yes, that's right. And keep in mind, that's why the polarization exists. It doesn't exist because people have been screwed over by 40 years of neoliberalism. It doesn't exist because people feel like they've been abandoned by both political parties, because they have. It doesn't exist because there's no such thing as actual debate on issues in this country. You're just labeled either a deplorable or a bot or a purist or pick a name. Pick a name and apply it across the board. It doesn't exist because we have presidential debates that are so void of any substance, the opening act should just be a guy getting kicked in the balls. The polarization doesn't exist because of that. It exists because Russia's telling us we have problems. Tell that to the person that lives in a food desert and has to work 3 jobs to survive. Russia's tricking them into thinking anything's wrong. They got it made. George Bush will tell you you're uniquely American. There's no problems here. Russia's tricking you. How condescending. And NPR is just jumping right on that train because they are bought and paid for. NPR was bought and paid for a long time ago, and it is tragic what happened to that organization. Beyond tragic what happened to that organization. All right. Sorry, guys. I lost my place on the scroll. And sorry again about the show today. I feel bad that I fucking... It's the dumbest thing, and I just ended the stream. I meant to... it's pointless to explain, but yeah, it was... Really screws up the rhythm, you know? So here's a little bit of music news that was sent by One Media Advocate. Thank you, One Media Advocate. And this is about Rage Against the Machine. So let's see what Rage Against the Machine's doing. Alright, so I don't know anything about the players involved here. I mean, I know who Rage Against the Machine is, but that's all I know. Rage Against the Machine demand Nigel Farage change podcast name. Desist letter, cease and desist letter sent to former UKIP leader for using title for Rage Against the Machine. Okay. Rage Against the Machine have demanded Nigel Farage, I guess he pronounces it Farage, that would make sense, changes the name of his podcast called For Rage Against the Machine. In a cease and desist letter sent to the former UKIP leader on Tuesday, the U.S. band said his podcast, hosted on LBC Radio, brazenly and unlawfully exploits their name. They said that any implication of Rage Against the Machine's endorsement of Farage or his policies was particularly abhorrent, owing to what the band called his far-right political views. Okay, so I know nothing about this guy Farage. This is like my first time hearing about him. I don't even know who he is. But I guess he's a fringe right-winger, and well, I guess this is him, right? Yeah, I'm not familiar with this person. So he's an MEP. Should no longer use their name and should find some other target to troll. They suggested he could focus on the U.S. President Donald Trump, whom Farage has said he considered a good friend. The letter by the band's main attorney, Howard King, also demanded Farage stop using all marketing, promotion, and advertising with everything that falsely associates you, your colleagues at LBC and Fox, and your far-right political views with Rage Against the Machine. A post on the band's Twitter account when Farage revealed his podcast name in March said, "This pissweasel is the Machine," peddling the sort of inane, blame-heavy bullshit that the guys in Rage Against the Machine have been raging against since day one. Interesting. So putting the political views of Marange aside, this creates a very interesting conversation because, first of all, in some ways, it's a parody. It's clearly a parody name. And if you start kind of stopping people from doing that, you kind of run into some free speech issues. So there's kind of that little factor going on there. The other side of it is Rage Against the Machine also has the right to protect their brand and their image. And if this person is so far from what they're all about, they have the right to be like, this is kind of tarnishing our image. We would appreciate a cease and desist. We want a cease and desist. And they would have some kind of basis for grounds. They can make the case that this is kind of infringing on their brand. This is creating a likelihood of confusion because people that are supportive of Rage Against the Machine's message would likely not connect with this. So they have some grounds too. I'm not trying to come out in support. I mean, I'm just kind of bringing it up for conversation's sake. And now when you bring in politics into this, this guy is a powerful fringe right-winger. I have no sympathy for him, and I hope he has to change the name of his podcast. Again, this is powerful. It's not like this is some small left-wing person that had a play on words for the name, and Rage Against the Machine just decided they were going to be jerks and be like, hey, we're suing you because that's kind of like us, and technically we can make the argument it infringes on our copyright, and we're powerful. If that was the case, I'd be like, really, guys? The guy's name happens to be Farage, and he's really got to do that? Why do you got to do that? Why? But in this case, it's a fringe right-wing powerful person. They have a lot of power. So I don't feel bad for them in this, for instance. And I hope Rage Against the Machine wins. However, I do, looking at it big picture and kind of all applying it, I do understand the complexity if you're going to bring First Amendment into this, although this is over in Britain where they do not have the same First Amendment laws as the United States. But I understand that slippery slope, big picture, but looking at it from a one case at a time perspective, screw this guy, good for Rage Against the Machine. Those are my thoughts. Let me see what you guys are thinking. Let's see. Rage Against the Oligarchy. Yeah, but is Breaking Bad going to sue every show that's coming out using their name? What do you mean? Who's using the Breaking Bad name? I don't know what that's in reference to. I agree, screw this guy, but let him keep the name. I think if Rage Against the Machine really feels strongly about it, they have the right to try to get him to change the name. I mean, again, looking at it big picture, I understand the slippery slope. But looking at it case by case, screw this guy. He's powerful. He can change his name. Xander points out, bands seem to do a pretty good job of this stuff, keeping their music and name out of the mouths of assholes. Are we going to sue every cover band? Those are completely different situations, I would say. Now, a cover band, if we're going to look at this big picture, a cover band should play in venues that have paid their fair ASCAP dues. That's the right thing to do. If a cover band does that, they have every right to make a living. They are totally doing it via the law. If a cover band's not, well, they should be more mindful of that stuff, to be fair. But yeah, we're not necessarily dealing with covers. We're dealing with images, brands, that sort of thing. So again, I understand the complexity, but looking at it case by case, and in this particular case, that guy's powerful. Screw him. Tom Morello supported Hillary Clinton, so things have changed. I don't know. I can't speak to that one way or another. I'll take your word for it. And, yeah, I know some people are not big Rage fans, and you know, I'm not the biggest fan. I enjoy their music. I enjoy some of their songs. I think they're kind of anthematic when it comes to activism. And but as far as where they stand politically now, and if they've gotten kind of more establishment, I would assume they have, just because they're rich. And I know that's kind of, you know, I hate to sound kind of apathetic about it, and I'm not apathetic about it. I'm just saying, you know, it wouldn't shock me, you know. So he did. Yeah, I'm not doubting you. I guess, yeah, Tom Morello probably did support Hillary Clinton. And it was probably one of those, if I had to take a guess, I would say Tom Morello was more Bernie. But then when Clinton won, he said Trump is awful and I got to support the lesser of two evils. I'd imagine, if I were to take a guess, that was where he at. That was where he was at. I disagree with that assessment of things. I chose a different route, but, you know, I understand. You know, I get it for a lot of people, and I think we really need to be issues-driven right now, and we really need to try to focus on the big picture and kind of peel off the layers of corruption to get ourselves to a better place. Anyway, so interesting article. I like it. Thank you for sharing that one. That was a fun one. That would have been a really cool Music Monday one. But you know what, guys? I'll be honest with you. In some ways, it's always Music Monday in my heart. This is from Celeste. I'm going to go ahead and give that a Get Your News On With Ron retweet. We'll go a few minutes later today because of all the goofy wonking, starting and stopping, and all that stuff that went on. Okay. Here, let me see if I can fix this a little bit for you guys. There we go. Let me move this down a little bit so you don't see my goofy arms. All right. Sanders-backed DNC plan sparks superdelegate revolt. A band of Democratic National Committee superdelegates is staging a revolt against the Bernie Sanders-endorsed plan to reduce their influence in the presidential nominating process, mounting a long-shot bid to block the measure when the DNC meets in Chicago next month. The proposal, a priority of Sanders supporters, and anybody who supports actual democracy, by the way. That should be in the article. The proposal, a priority of Sanders supporters, and anybody that thinks democracy is a cool idea, since the Vermont senator's defeat in a bitterly contested 2016 primary, where he was blatantly cheated, would prohibit superdelegates from voting on the first presidential nominating ballot at a contested national convention. It should prohibit them from voting ever or ever existing. There is one appropriate number of superdelegates. It's the same as the appropriate number of ICE agents. 0. 0. That is the one and only appropriate number of ICE agents and superdelegates in this country. 0. I'll say it one more time. 0. If we don't have a vote, then what good are we? Said William Owen, a superdelegate. Guess what, William Owen? You do have a vote. You know how many votes you have? 1. You have 1 frickin' vote. The same amount of vote that I have. Frickin' 1. The same amount of vote that every other citizen in this country should have. Frickin' 1. And you know what their vote should count for, by the way, while we're on this topic? Fucking 1. That's what it should count for. 1. Meaning 1 person, 1 vote. Meaning the Electoral College goes bye-bye. What a condescending, disillusioned person this guy is. If we don't have a vote, then what good are we? You have 1 vote, William Owen. You're a citizen. You're a frickin' citizen. The superdelegates go bye-bye. You become citizen. Citizen gets vote. You want me to draw a diagram for you? No, you want to hold on to your power. That's what this is about. And if somehow the superdelegates in this reform don't get to go out and vote like everybody else, hey, guess what that means? That means that this quote-unquote compromise isn't good enough, and we need to just eliminate superdelegates altogether. so that everybody gets to be a citizen and cast one vote, which is what a citizen has a right to. One vote. The proposal to reduce the power of superdelegates, which isn't enough, it needs to eliminate the power of superdelegates, reflects a broader effort by the DNC. Bullshit! It reflects the efforts of people protesting the DNC. To mend divisions still lingering from a fiercely contested presidential primary where the progressive was cheated, superdelegates, including members of Congress, governors, and DNC members, and other so-called distinguished party leaders, overwhelmingly sided with Clinton. And apparently they just know more than we do. Our feeble minds can't wrap our heads around who can beat a Republican. So we need these superdelegates that have a fantastic track record of nominating the most beatable nominee in our country's history, who managed to lose to a reality television show star. So guess what, superdelegates? You're whining about the process with the compromise? We need to eliminate them altogether so you can just be a citizen like everybody else. And if you think you're entitled to being more than a citizen and entitled to more than having one vote, you're wrong. And you're part of the problem. You're part of the problem. I'm looking at you, Al Franken, who said you know better than your state does. You didn't. You were freaking wrong. You were wrong. Oh, and by the way, to anybody that says, oh, well, I just thought Hillary had the best chance of beating Trump, so I supported her in the primary instead of Bernie, you don't understand how a primary works. A primary, the purpose of a primary is people support the platform they feel the strongest about, and they support the candidate they feel the strongest about, so that after the primary is over, whichever candidate wins really knows what the people want, and then becomes a stronger candidate because of it going into the general. That's the point of a primary. So if you didn't support the candidate you felt was the strongest, you don't understand how a primary works. You should take a class, maybe read a book, I don't know. But you do not understand how a primary works. Grr! Let's see what you guys are saying. Fred Edwards says, I need you to draw that picture for me. You do not want me to draw anything. I have the motor skills of like a 2-year-old. I am so bad at drawing. It's unbelievable how bad I am at drawing. Ron Smash. You guys are great. I love you guys. DC, thank you for the super chat contribution. Look up Matt Cunnell and Lib Socialist Caucus on Twitter. That's not me saying this. That's DC saying this. You know, I'm not endorsing one way or the other. But if people want to look it up, you should check it out. I'll be honest, I went to, you know, some of you guys, when I said I don't understand how a libertarian socialist can be a thing, some of you guys sent me some information from their website. I'll be totally honest, and I'm not trying to be, but I still don't quite grasp the concept. Like I really don't. Maybe I mean, I understand what progressives and libertarians have in common. We do have a lot in common. We want to end the wars. We want to end money in politics. We have a few very big pillars in common. That's why I would say that the libertarians are in many ways a close cousin to progressives. And I really want to work with them and collaborate with them. But as far as saying, well, libertarian socialist, well, that's, I mean, I don't understand. There's a lot of conflicts in those principles. I mean, because how can you, like, for example, here's a question, and maybe one of you can answer it. Does libertarian, because I couldn't find this and all I did was just go to the Facebook page. I didn't do any, like, deep-seating sleuthing. But does the libertarian socialist platform support single payer? And I'm honestly, like, I don't know. Like, I'm asking. I can't imagine how they would. It doesn't make sense to me how they would. You know what I mean? Like, all right, so we support the rights of workers to seize the means of production. Okay, I can see that connection. I can see how you can still be somewhat quote-unquote libertarian in the sense where you're like, I support the idea of enterprise within a market, okay? Which that's not just libertarian on its own. You can have actual democratic socialism and still have that. That's not libertarianism. It's just maybe vaguely related. And then you can say, but I support worker co-ops within that system. I can see that connection, totally. But how, if you're a libertarian, how could you support single payer? Like, to me, that doesn't make sense. You know? Like, and I'm not saying like I'm against, because honestly, labels only take us so far. Labels only take us so far. And, you know, that's why I don't really subscribe to anything. I mean, I'm vocal about the fact that, you know, I think socialism is the clearest glass if I had to pick a glass. But, you know, I don't subscribe to any one ism. I think it's all kind of gray area. But, you know, that being said, certain labels, I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't really... You can be libertarian on social issues and socialist on economic issues. Well, sure, you can pick whatever you want. But if you're going to take that on as an entire platform, like, okay, well then what is your platform for healthcare, for instance? Because to me, those are two completely conflicting. The general libertarian view for healthcare and the general socialist view from healthcare are two completely different things. Two completely different things. You know, the libertarians, I mean, some of the conversations I've had with libertarians before, straight up libertarians, not people that say I'm a libertarian socialist, but straight up libertarians. You know, when we talk about the wars, we're on the same page. When we talk about ending the drug war, we're on the same page. When we talk about money in politics, we're on the same page. When we talk about corruption in the two-party system, we're totally on the same page. Those are some big pillars to have in common. But then when we talk about healthcare, it's like, what? So anyway, you know, I mean, I'm totally open to learning more about it, and I know some of you guys, that's your thing, and you know, I'd love to know more about it. But you know, as far as Melissa pointed out, libertarian in the Ayn Rand sense, that is the total opposite of progressivism. That's the total opposite of socialism. So, you know. DC, all right. This past week was the Libertarian Socialist Caucus of the Libertarian Party's debut at the Libertarian National Convention. Say libertarian 12 times. No, just kidding. We changed a lot of minds about socialism in that it can be voluntary. To an extent, DC. I mean, in a single-payer system, you can't make it voluntary. It has to be our system. It has to be a single-payer system that people participate in. Otherwise, it won't work. So, again, I'll bring it back to healthcare. What is the Libertarian Socialist platform for healthcare? And if it's not single payer, I mean, I don't think I can get on board with it because I've never seen anything that is a clear of a glass as single payer. And I talked to a libertarian that wrote a book about the whole healthcare crisis. She laid out her plan. And she was a very intelligent woman. We agreed on a lot of issues. But when it came to her plan for healthcare, I'm sorry, I found it nothing short of delusional. It was an absolutely insane plan. It talked about how we're going to have these things, I think they were called MIWAs, where you voluntarily go into a system and then you cooperate with each other and you fill each other's health needs based on the needs of your group. So if you're really freaking unhealthy, you have to find a MIWA with other really, really freaking unhealthy people where you all pay for each other. So hopefully you all have money. Hopefully all of you are really rich. We're banking on the idea that there's some really, really unhealthy people that are also really rich that might have been born with something. And if you're really healthy, you go into this other Miwa with other healthy people. And if one of the healthy people gets sick, well, then chances are the Miwa is going to say, you can't be part of our Miwa anymore, and you have to find a sick person Miwa. Does this sound sane to anybody? It didn't to me. It didn't to me. And it was a hard interview because the lady was so incredibly sweet and intelligent, and it was hard for me to be like, this sounds crazy, but it did to me. So anyway, yeah, Chris Walker says, yeah, dude, I totally just explained it. Like that's the plan. Are chicken worker co-ops redundant or coops? Balthazar with another pun. Balthazar, you know I love my puns from you. Thank you. It wouldn't be a stream without a Balthazar pun. Honestly. So thank you, Balthazar. And thank you for the Super Chat contribution. Celeste, thank you for the Super Chat contribution. We need a morally based party. I agree with you, Celeste. Not morally in the right-wing sense, though. Morally in the sense that, hey, you know what? We decided to come down from the trees a long time ago and cooperate. Let's cooperate. You can still be an individual in a herd, but you have an obligation to the herd. And I'll leave you guys with that. I feel like that's uplifting. Guys, we are totally out of time. I went a little later because of all the goofiness that happened today. I'm sorry about today. I totally bumped something and ended the stream. It was not Ajit Pai. It was not Joe Crowley. It was not YouTube or Google or anybody. It was me. I totally bumped. It wasn't Lucy. It was me. Lucy's asleep in the other room. She's like, dude, I'm over it. I am out. I got some phone banking for Ocasio-Cortez later today, Ron. I don't have time to watch you pontificate about it. I got some phone banking. All right, Lucy, I get it. But she sends her love. Guys, you are awesome. You make this show possible. Little bit of housekeeping before I get out of here. Want to help this show? Patreon.com/Ron Placone. Pay what you can level. You get all kinds of exclusive content, all kinds of perks, including free tickets to my shows when I'm in your town, which, by the way, Sacramento, California, November 2nd. I'm coming along with Graham Elwood. San Francisco, California, November 3rd. I'm coming with Graham Elwood. Sacramento, November 2nd. San Francisco, November 3rd. November 23rd, I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Tickets are available at ronplacone.com for all of those shows. And hey, Richmond, Virginia, I will see you this weekend. If anyone here happens to be in Richmond, you're not hip to that show, drop me an email. It's a house show, so drop me an email, and I will get you in touch with the right people to attend that show. But I'm doing a house show in Richmond, Virginia, this Saturday, July 14th. I love you all very much. You make this show possible. I'm traveling tomorrow, so we will be back on, I believe, Wednesday. We'll be back on Wednesday because I'm traveling on Tuesday. I get back on the 18th. So, but I will be in touch in the meantime. This has been Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. Have a great weekend. Peace.